All right, meeting's going. So just do our standard call for opens. Mike, we were going around. I don't know if anyone has any topics, but let's see if you have anything.
Just two to mention that are related to new repositories under Tiana Core. Maybe you've seen that OpenSSL was added based upon a request from the group of developers that are working on OpenSSL 3.0 and trying to figure out how to get that into a size, reasonable size relative to the OpenSSL 1.1.1. And because they had to make changes to OpenSSL 3.0 in order to meet some of those size targets, we're opening up a fork of OpenSSL in Tiana Core for the community to work on those contributions and get the patches into a format that would be acceptable by the OpenSSL community. Based on past experience, it's taken a while to get content into OpenSSL. So this gives us an opportunity to test thoroughly and potentially use that content hosted under Tiana Core until we can get that those OpenSSL changes upstreamed.
Sounds good. Is someone tasked with keeping it up to date, or is there going to be a rebase of this branch every time there's a new tag coming out of OpenSSL?
I believe that the owners are listed in there. It's Jaywin and a couple other people, so that should be there. And yes, they should be tracking the OpenSSL 3.0 releases is what I expect in that.
Okay, sounds good.
And then the second one is from the Redfish contributors, where they've got an RFC for a new repository for some of the Redfish client schemas. I think it's a pretty astounding number. They said there may be many thousands of combinations of these things, and that individual platforms, when they build a product, may only pick a subset of them for their products. So they did not think it was good to add that huge amount of content into either the EDK2 or the EDK2 platforms repo. So they proposed a new repo for that. So I didn't know if anybody's looked at that proposal or had any comments on it from a specifically from a tools and infrastructure perspective.
I know I haven't, and to be fair, I haven't done any kind of modern look into the Redfish stuff either.
Okay, well, those are my two opens. Just the first one is I already created the OpenSSL fork for those contributors that have been doing a great job of evaluating how we're going to move off of OpenSSL 1.1.1 before September of this year. And then the second one, if there's any questions or concerns, please discuss with Abner on the mailing list about the additional Redfish repository.
Sounds good. Any other topics from the group here? Mike, was there any progress in kind of revamping the base tools ownership and getting that Python-based project up and running in a more sustainable way?
I've not seen, a clear change yet. I need to continue to follow up with that. It's supposed to be Bob and Christine, but I do not think I've seen sufficient activity to support the work that needs to be done there. I know that Rebecca has volunteered to be a base tools reviewer, or is she a maintainer now? That's what I can't recall. Is that what level that changed to? have to look at
Okay.
text to see what's going on there.
I think she has a pull request up with the same listing herself as a maintainer.
Okay.
Herself and Lemming.
Yes. Yeah. Lemming's the other. So I know that in the past, Lemming's had a conflict at this time slot. Sean, maybe we need to reach out to Lemming and see if we can get Lemming and Rebecca and Bob and Christine here to, kind of have them as a group present their kind of plan for getting better response on both the Python repository and the base tools in the EDK2 repo, the C ones.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, and then
I think Rebecca was also asking some questions about like ownership, I should say, like maintainer kind of status on the base tools Python repository. Because it would just listed like everybody that was a tool maintainer in there, so it didn't have like clear ownership for who processes PRs or gives feedback or does approvals and things like that. It seems like it's a more a loose collection of developers at this moment. So do we need a stronger, ownership, indication as far as the README or something like that, so that if somebody's submitting something and they're not getting responses, who do they reach out to first?
yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think our hope is that we would still do it through GitHub Teams, but it would just mean that we would need to create more teams in GitHub to differentiate the different roles.
Okay. Because right now PRs that are sent, you've got like a group of like, I guess there's 6 or 7 or 8 people in the tools team right now.
Probably. It's been growing. It's been yeah.
Right. So I think it's in that probably nobody feels like they're specifically responsible for that repo at this moment. So that's probably where we're kind of in a kind of not a great state from a capturing things. I see Christine's joined. Hi, Christine. We're talking about the base tools.
Hi.
And have you, Christine, I'm just wondering, have you had a chance to talk to Lamine about base tools as well? Because he's listed as a maintainer too.
Can you repeat it?
Have
I did
you-
not.
you-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Have you talked to Lamine Gao about base tools
Uh-huh.
and making progress on reviewing PRs, getting them, merged in, and then the mailing list reviews and things like that?
Oh, okay. I will try to sync with the Liming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. I think Lamine has a conflict at this time. Or he may be like driving in at this time or something like that. So we need to see if we can get maybe Lamine and Bob and you and Rebecca to attend in a very near future meeting to make sure we understand the overall ownership and moving PRs through and reviews through at a much faster pace than we are today.
Okay. I will sync with Liming first, like, and to tell him about the status currently.
Okay. And you saw that Rebecca is a maintainer now as well, right, Christine?
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But please coordinate with her as well, and see if we can't make some progress on the backlog of items.
Okay.
Anything else on that topic, Sean?
No, I don't think so. All right. Anything else for anyone on all of tools and CI?
Do we care to ever do something like merge queues, or is that too advanced or something for us to use in EDK2?
Michael, I don't know. go ahead, Mike.
As I said, Michael, maybe you can describe it. We have Mergify, which does have support for merge queues, but I think the more advanced elements of merge queues are not available as a free for open source capability. Can you maybe describe the aspects of merge queues that you think would be valuable over what our current Mergify enabled features are?
Yeah, the main thing that it brings at a high level is it improves throughput of PRs into the main branch. Because it groups together PRs and builds them in the merge queue. And if the merge queue passes, it can take those PRs and go ahead and move them over to the main branch. Whereas today, the problem that at least I run into is you have a bunch of PRs, they're building, they're being tested, and then someone merges, and then you have to rebase and then start your PRs all over again, and then someone merges, and then you have to rebase and start all
No, you
over
don't.
again.
So you don't have to rebase ever. You just set the push label. Mergify takes care of it.
Every time I've done it, I've always had a problem. I mean, I think you emailed me one time and told me I had to go update it because of a conflict, and there wasn't a merge conflict locally.
If there's a conflict, yes, you have to resolve the conflict. But if there's no conflicts, Mergify will take care of it. It does the rebase for you.
Okay, maybe CI was just broken that day. Because you
Okay.
emailed me and one time I had to go do it because CI was definitely broken. It wasn't cloning right. But the second time you emailed me and said there was a merge conflict, but whenever I checked locally, there was no conflict. I just simply rebased and pushed it again, and it worked.
Okay. And I don't know under what rules Mergify does conflict resolution. So it could be that the settings you have for locally for resolving conflicts may be different than what Mergify had configured. That's yeah, because as you may be aware that some of the Git configurations for resolution there's some settings for that.
But what it does is it basically improves throughput where it builds everything in the merge queue. And if the merge queue passes, it merges it, which reduces the amount of individual buildings of PRs and having to rebase and that type of a thing.
Okay, so when you have multiple requests to merge a PR at the same time, it can then group them together.
Right.
And if there's a failure, it then has to fall back to trying them one at a time, right?
Yeah, it eliminates, one of the PRs, it tests those together. It figures out which one caused the failure, and then it can drop that one and merge the others, for example.
Sure.
Which, I mean, it's kind of like what we do today. We just threw a bunch of push labels up and then let it go. So this is a similar way to do it. It just involves less building.
Yep. Okay. And I understand there's a beta feature around this for GitHub, correct?
Yeah, there is. I looked into that a little bit. It seems usable. It's not as it doesn't have as many features as like Mergify merge queues do though. Whether or not we care about those, we'd have to like look at them individually and see. But for example, one of the things that Mergify allows you to do is it lets you choose what you want your merge method to be. So you can choose like squash or rebase or merge or whatever. With the GitHub implementation, you can only choose one merge method. I think for EDK2, that's probably fine because we essentially use rebase anyway on everything. We're not doing like squash commits and stuff or squash merging on our PRs. One of the other things is there's some like nice to have features like prioritization, and that's not there in the GitHub implementation, but it is there in the Mergify one. So if there's like some PRs that you want to prioritize getting into the queue and getting in first, it has like a method to be able to choose those to go in over other PRs if anything's eliminated and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Mergify pricing page, and the speculative checks and priority queue are not free for open source. So we'd have to figure out how to pay for more features.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be worth like just looking at the GitHub implementation and seeing if there's any value there. And if not, probably just not doing it, because it seems to provide the basics and it's integrated fairly well, and it's already there. So I don't know, like, just off a quick look of the GitHub implementation, if there's anything necessarily missing that EDK2 would need, because I think it's a relatively simple process that we have, especially given that we're always doing like rebase and merges instead of squash.
Aren't we kind of blocked from using this until we get to a model where PRs are handled, the whole process is handled through the PR process?
I mean, use the GitHub merge queue, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because I think once it's ready, it's ready.
Yeah,
So
I
you-
was thinking this would kind of pick up at the point where we put the push labels in, right? And that would be kind of the entry to the queue.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think it changes much. I think given the way that we use pull request, it just seems like maybe it could help a little bit there, reduce some of the CI thrash and usage of machines and kind of optimize some of the testing to get PRs in.
I mean, this is actually very similar to in the past. I think we had some maintainers that took a whole bunch of different patch series that were all approved and put them into one PR and then added the push label to them.
Yes,
That's
essentially.
pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's just like an automated version of that.
Okay.
And it does have the ability to, like, if something fails, you like remove things and figure out what works and stuff like that. So there is like some level of it being able to like handle things without having too much manual intervention. But I think we'd have to experiment with it, obviously, to see what kind of, if there's any weird corner cases or something that come up with it.
Right. Yeah, what is interesting is that, I'm looking at some of the examples just real quick here on the around the merge queue on Mergify. And you can do some very interesting things about like setting a label to say you want it to use the queue or not, right? So so we could leave our standard push one, and if you wanted to do some experiments, with the queue, you could set the queue label and the push label on a few of them. But I don't necessarily want to do that on our production EDK2 repo until we understand that we've got some good rules here. So you probably want to do it in a fork and try it out.
Yeah, I guess, but it sounds like at least in the EDK2 project, if we had some data, we might be open to doing something like this, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a reduction in our, and there's like two places, right? It's our getting PRs into main, and I don't know what it does with our after the push where we do the re-verify. If that means that the re-verification is across all of them going in at once instead of the individuals. So once you enable it, do we get double the benefit, right, from the batching?
Right.
It definitely would help for those PRs that are, updating maintainers.txt and those kind of smaller things that are especially non-functional changes.
Yeah, and I don't understand why that's another optimization we could choose to do too, right? For the things that we know are non-functional.
Right.
Yeah, you're just
So-
saying something like a simple file filter, right?
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for our common things that are like, go and do, 40 minutes of CI for an update to maintainers.txt seems like a much more lower hanging fruit and less risk than turning on this feature.
Yeah. Are we having queue length problems still?
I think it's gotten better. Mike, you've probably looked at it more than I have the last couple weeks.
I haven't seen any issues pop up, but that does not necessarily mean. Like what our, yeah, so like our rate of changes going in, is on average about 1 or 2 a day of pushes. So not very high right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, if anyone gets excited, they can play around with it and report back.
I agree.
Anything else from anyone? All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.